there's one thing I wish I knew a lot earlier that feels illegal to know. It's how to heal your pocket and learn how to invest so you can create financial freedom for yourself and your family. Now, in today's session, we have Ryan Smolarz, and he will talk about financial freedom for doctors and how anyone can benefit from this information, in particular, doctors. The first question I have is, what's the secret to your success? And did learning how to invest contribute towards that?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's all about the mindset. I don't know that I'm successful yet. I still strive for that every day. But I think that there has been some level of that. And I think it all has to do with the way you approach different things in your life and sort of the mindset around it. Being a doctor has its sort of trials and tribulations with that, because the mindset, in my opinion, has to be completely different. And until you sort of understand that and wrap your head around it, it's going to be a very uphill battle.
Thank you. Tell us about your journey and how you got here.
Yeah, so we'll go back to 2016. I knew absolutely nothing about finance, not a single thing. I didn't even know where we banked. My wife took care of all of that. And we were starting a family and doing all the things that one does in their life, and that made me very uncomfortable. And so I remember we were out exercising with a group of my friends, surfing, and I kind of looked over at them. I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go to business school. So they were like, well, you don't know anything about finance. I said, well, isn't that the point? So about a month and a half later, I was in business school, and I remember very distinctly walking in and thinking that I was in the wrong place, didn't really fit in. And about the third or fourth day, I realized that how different the doctor world was to this finance sort of world, and how really until you change the way you think, it's not that the world needs to change for you, it's that you need to change for the world, that it all starts making sense. And so that's really what started it all. At the end of business school, got out and went into several different ventures, and we've been hitting the ground running ever since.
Thank you. So tell us more specifically, what have you managed to achieve, and why have you started to coach other doctors what to do with their finances?
Yeah, so having started at square zero, going from knowing nothing about finance, basically we have the practice where we see patients every day and do surgery. So I became a lot more involved in the business aspect of that. And then we started building assisted living homes. And so that was kind of another trial by fire sort of thing. I started that before all the business knowledge that I have now. And so I feel like, having been through both sides of it, where I had no understanding, all the way through to having understanding with the same asset, I think that I have some pretty powerful things to tell people and teach them about how that process works. There's some aspect of you're never going to be ready, and you have to at some point just jump in with everything you have, but also with a knowledge base to be able to grow very quickly and fail forward. I think that also we buy storage facilities. We have sort of an e-com where we patent and sell products on Amazon and some other platforms. And so I think that my skill set is pretty multifaceted. And, I don't think that I'll expand into any more categories, but we're going to push as hard as we can to expand the businesses that we have.
Thank you. So, can you give me an example of what you saw possible for yourself and your family, and perhaps other clients that you've had in terms of, let's say, you're running the self-storage and assisted living facilities. So, can you give us like a number? What can doctors potentially achieve in terms of investment? Is it like an extra $1,000 a month? Is it $5,000 a month? Or what are you trying to help doctors achieve? Is there a particular sum that you're kind of like aiming towards in terms of investment?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think every situation is different. And for me, the sky is the limit, and I have no upper limit for myself. I do find that there are some people out there who really just, since they've finished their training, their expenses are too high, and they're living paycheck to paycheck, even with a very, good salary, and they just want to learn how to sort of manage that a little bit better. I think it's individual based. It's what you want. I'm a firm believer and never be embarrassed about what it is that you want, because it's what is for you. And so I hear people all the time telling me, different things. And sometimes I ask them, I say, is this really what you want? And sometimes the answer is yes, but the majority of the time it's, I don't know. I just thought that's what I was supposed to want. And so, I try not to, feed people my sort of take on it. I want to teach them the how, not the what, in their investment journey, and kind of point them along the way.
Thank you. So, in terms of investment, can you mention like a number that you've managed to already achieve in terms of additional income? Is it that you're suggesting that the doctors would add additional income, or is it that the target is to replace the current income with investment only income?
Yeah. Well, I think again, it just depends. It's really about the option to not have to work, I think, is sort of the premise of the whole bit. If you want to work, and that's what makes you happy, then I think you should absolutely do it. I think a lot of burnout stems from people in these situations where they have too high expenses, and they feel this obligation to, work 16, 18 hours a day. For our investments, we target about an 18% IRR, with about 18% on our money. And, if you compound that over a significant period of time, and you keep compounding and you keep placing capital, if as long as things don't go sideways, that in itself can push you along, very fast forward to your financial freedom.
Okay, so tell us more about how it works.
Well, it just depends on which part. Right now, we buy self-storage facilities, and so as a part of that, we invite different medical professionals and others to invest, and they can be, in the learning process as much as they want. Look at the financials, ask us questions, all these sorts of things, and from a starting point, one thing I can tell you is that education is so much more less expensive than what I went through, because I was paying, for college and institutions and all those sorts of things to feed me the information. Where here they, place capital and it comes back to them with a return. So I find that sort of setup fascinating. I've done it myself. I still do it. I like to pick asset classes that I'm interested in and don't know much about, so I can find the experts. I mean, I think to me, that's really what it's about, is if you want to learn something, find the experts and have them teach you how to do it. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? And in this case, you actually make money at the same time. And if after the investment, or during the investment for that matter, you want to go out and do it on your own, you feel like you're ready, then we're all for it.
Thank you. In terms of the assisted living, tell us a bit more about how it works. Is it that you select, where do you select, for example, the what's the location, the suggested location for finding these places to make sure that, yes, you invest in something and then it gets rented?
Yeah, so that you're going back to the underwriting and the demographics. The setup that we have options of several different states that we go to. We like to find a place where we can use economies of scale, just meaning that there's several of them in the same location where we can order the supplies in bulk. If one of our people gets sick or they don't show up for work, whatever the case may be, and they're at a sister facility, then we can use some of those resources to go over to the other facility and some of those sorts of things. I think as far as the question about how it works, in the United States in particular, there's such a high percentage of people that are elderly or going into that category that there's no shortage of people who need assistance in their living situations. The question usually ends up being, can they afford it? Because we provide good care, we have good meals, and all the setup. But what we see tend to happen is these folks, save money their entire life to be able to retire in a comfortable living situation. But inflation has eaten up their nest egg over time, and so the funds start getting a little short. And so that's really, in its core, what we're trying to prevent with the medical providers. They're so fixated on, healing other people. Our premise is, take a step back, and, you're not gonna be able to help people if you can't, if your own situation is not taken care of.
Thank you. What about the self-storage? How does it work in terms of finding the right location?
Yeah, so we have lots of people that are on the telephone dialing all the facilities, asking them if they're ready to sell, or if they're not, to give us a call whenever they are ready. And we try to build a reputation and rapport with the sellers, that we do good business and we're going to take care of them. And, we're not out for blood. We're out to, for everybody to walk away from the table with a winning situation. And so the word spreads. And so, there is tons of due diligence that you have to be very, very careful about getting into an opportunity, because we're not talking about small dollars here. We're also talking about other people's capital that you're, responsible for. So it's the same in the doctor world. I'm responsible for people's lives. And in my opinion, their financial well-being is just almost as important. Not, you have to have your health to be able to do the things in life that you want to do. But it is extraordinarily important to protect that capital, because they're helping us. We want to help them.
Thank you. Are you saying that you actually manage the investment for these doctors, or is it that you give them training and they do it themselves and they choose their own locations and stuff?
Yeah, so the podcast is centered around solely education, and if they want to do that on their own, then that's perfectly fine with us. From a business standpoint, other than the podcast, we raise capital and buy the facilities and manage it and do all the things.
Ah, okay, very interesting. Okay, so what has been your most successful project so far? Is there anything you can share?
Sure. I can tell you the story that probably means the most to me. I mentioned that our first facility, is in Oklahoma, and we had disaster after disaster. It flooded twice. We had some employee issues, architect issues, you name it. And the facility's been down twice, once for 6 months. And so basically, we went from having 20 beds full, which is a full facility at the time, to a couple of weeks later, we opened up a 20-bed unit on the other side, and we were down to, like, I think it was 8 clients, because the facility flooded. And in that turmoil, the situation was fairly dire, from aspects of finance to, families to, you name it. There was every aspect of the business was in trouble. And we were able, over the course of time, to self-correct the ship. We are now completely full, um, and we're at market or just above market rates, and providing extraordinarily good care. A lot of that has to do with my team. I'm seeing patients and doing surgeries, but we have an incredible team who takes care of these folks just like they were their mom or dad. And so I am super proud of that. And being an investor and an entrepreneur, in my opinion, you're voting with your dollars. And so, for me to put my capital towards a venture like that and see the extraordinarily large amount of good that we were doing for these people in the community, that's what means most to me.
Okay. Are there any figures that you can share or stats or anything?
As far as the investment, so yeah, I mean, we can run through the numbers. So it was right about $4,500 per resident. So let's call it times 10. I think there was actually 8, but so what is that? 10 times 4,500. That's 40,000.
45.
45,000. Yeah. So, and our just mortgage alone was somewhere around 50,000. So every expense on top of that was out of our pocket for about 10 months. And now we're at 41, 42 residents because a couple of the rooms have 2 beds. And we're at 6,250, call it 6,000. So times 40, whatever 6,000 times 40 is, with an expense ratio of, I don't know, 60%, something like that. So I'd have to calculate out all the numbers, but it's a very fruitful, profitable investment at this point. And there's capital that has to be paid back because we were robbing Peter to pay Paul to make ends meet. But in the end, to me, it's about the win, right? Not so much about the money. We are definitely winning, and to me, that's the most important thing.
Okay, thank you. So how does that compare versus other investment types, and how safe is it?
Yeah, so assisted living is extraordinarily risky. Extraordinarily risky. I don't have investors in any of the assisted living deals because of that risk. Now, the reward is, much higher than some of the other asset classes, but I don't really feel comfortable taking investor money. In storage, quite the opposite. It's a concrete slab with a metal box, and people put pink flamingos in there, right? So, if the risk is much lower, and I would call it asymmetrical risk, because usually in investment, the more risk, the more reward. And I think there's a sweet spot in the market where there's less risk in self-storage and a fairly high reward. And that's really what we're looking for. It's what really any fund that pools capital to buy investments is looking for, is asymmetrical risk. And I think that, although the assisted living is fairly risky, the storage is not quite as. And so that's where we choose to, raise the capital and be able to expand much faster, and, provide a good return for the people who are involved.
Thank you. How can doctors get involved?
Yeah, they can find me. Very easy to find me. STOR, STOR Partners.com. There's a website there. Click the link. You can have a call with my team and myself. I can send you, we have a text thread link that, we can text back and forth. I think that's kind of one of the popular things going on these days. You can put comments on the Medicine and Money Show on YouTube. We kind of have taken a little bit of a hiatus there, but we're going to start back in full force and, have all the experts and consultants and all the stuff that you need to, be an investor, be a doctor. We have student loan people on there, insurance people, CPAs, and attorneys, and all the people that are really behind the scenes, kind of helping you through that investment journey.
Thank you. I was referring more like, how can they get involved in terms of like starting to invest with you?
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way, is to start the conversation and build rapport and trust, right? So I think it all starts with starts with a conversation. And probably one of my first questions is going to be, do you like self-storage? If not, I've got tons of friends that are doing multifamily, and um, you know, uh, some people are buying judgments and trying to fulfill on those. I mean, there's a million different things that are out there that people are making money on. I don't like to take investors' capital that aren't comfortable. And so if they don't like pink flamingos and that's not their thing, I feel like I can still add value and point them in the right direction. So I would say that that's absolutely the first step, is get to know me, let me get to know you, and let's start that journey together.
Thank you. How does self-storage and assisted living, for example, compare with just, I don't know, buying a property and refurbishing it a little bit and renting it out? How does that compare in terms of returns and hassle and that kind of thing?
Oh, tenants, toilets, and trash. That to me is a gigantic hassle. I don't like residential. If you mean single family, it's
Yes.
just a very big headache. Usually in that type of scenario, you're really holding the asset for the appreciation and any depreciation that you can get alongside it, but it's harder to tease that out. And a big facility, at least in the United States, we're able to separate the asset into personal property, land development, and what is structural. And all of those components are able to be written off, with a large majority of that in the first year, called bonus depreciation. So we tend to spend a lot of time talking about not only the appreciation of the asset, but also the depreciation, which you can write off. And so I think that from that aspect, you have to be pretty savvy to sort of navigate that process, because you don't want to put yourself at risk for an audit or something like that. And if you're doing residential, to be able to sort of tease all that out just seems daunting to me. Unless you have a management company, people are calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning because the toilet won't flush. Usually the amount of money on top of what after you pay the debt service and the mortgage and all that, there's not much cash flow. So really the biggest pop comes at the end of the investment. It just, it's one of those things that just because I don't like it doesn't mean that the person, down the street's not going to love it. I just don't, it's just not my thing.
Thank you. In terms of, for example, assisted living, you mentioned it's quite risky. Why is it risky?
There's so many moving parts. The biggest risk is employee risk, right? So you have so many people that have to work. And as we've seen since the COVID era, the human resource sort of aspect of any business is just torture. And so when you have to have, 20, 30 employees all showing up on time, or somebody's not going to get fed, families get upset, as I would too, if the medicines don't get taken care of, or the meals don't get served on time. People don't, go to the toilet on time. And, there's so many aspects. Being a doctor, we see people, 15 to 30 to 45 minutes at a time. They come in, they go out. In assisted living, you are the care provider for them 24/7, unless they're off property. And so with that is a gigantic responsibility. Just so many things can go wrong.
That's so interesting. I hadn't thought of that. What about the self-storage? What's the biggest benefit of investing in that?
There's lots of them, but the biggest benefit to me is not only the appreciation, but the depreciation, like we spoke of. But otherwise, from a owner operator standpoint, I think it really just goes back to the human capital. There may be one person there a couple hours a day. I mean, there are some facilities that we have where they're there maybe 3-4 hours for the entire week, just, tidying up lockers and making sure that the people paid and all that sort of thing. The labor, you can see sort of where my head is. The labor aspect of these businesses can make or break you, and the salaries, right? I mean, the assisted living on overall brings in more capital, but you're taking, you're putting food on the table for a lot of people, and that's very expensive.
Thank you. In terms of the are these the best investment solutions that you have found, the self-storage?
It's pretty high on the list. There's some very good traders out there that are making hand over fist, returns for their investors, and that's awesome. But at the end of the day, they're paying an extraordinarily large amount of money in their taxes. So it's a give and take. What I usually tell people is, if you can find a good trader that can make a ton of money for you, do that. And then once you sort of, get that capital, bring it to us and let us try to, help you out with paying a lower tax bill. It just makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. What's the minimum the doctors require in order to start?
Yeah, usually in ours it's 50,000. We like 100,000 more. It's we like to have people have a little skin in the game. But there are people out there that like to do the 50 tranches, and we're fine with that. There again, it's about us treating them good, or them treating us good to provide the capital, and then in return us treat them well. And that's sort of the whole premise. We're not really buying commercial real estate, in my opinion. We're building relationships.
Thank you. How long does it take to get a return?
Well, it depends. A lot of the time, some of our current investments, we haven't missed a distribution payment at all. They are value add. So sometimes you have to spend the money on, fixing the gate or the doors or whatever the case may be. And then that capital comes back to you at the end of the investment. But a lot of our deals have, returns starting day one, the first quarter. And so the most of that capital comes back to you at the end with the splits, as we call it. The biggest part of the return is on the sale of the asset.
Thank you. What's your message for entrepreneurs worldwide that want to invest in self-storage?
Well, just being an investor in general is start. Absolutely. Quit being on the sidelines. Find a good team that you trust. Find a good mentor, teacher, whatever that looks like. If you want to join our team, we're more than happy to have you. But start. Don't sit on the beach and worry about the sharks in the water that are never going to get you, right? We all have things that sort of happen and things go sideways, but they're going to, regardless if you do it now or in 20 years. So you might as well go ahead and start and getting those lumps and bumps out of the way.
Thank you. That was fascinating. Stay tuned for the next episode and tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, so storpartners.com, STOR partners.com. That's the Medicine and Money Show on YouTube. And I'll try to get you that number for the text for the link. You can find me personally on LinkedIn, probably a good place to see my bio and see what I've been up to. I need to update it a little bit, but I'm pretty easy to find.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.